In a world where every big city career woman is reminded by their hilarious, gay-coded best friend that she needs to marry a man by Christmas, while helping Santa Claus circle the globe for a second time in the same night, because somehow the plainest kid who just wanted to wake up to a new bike was forgotten. And E-lister Kevin Sorbo saves the local orphan hospital threatened by the rich atheist outsider who never got his Oscar Mayer weenie whistle, as Mariah Carey loops endlessly in the background of our lives. Yeah, I think I can say we're all a little fatigued on that modern Christmas spirit. I know so many people who just want the Christmas holiday to wait until after the Thanksgiving dishes have been put away before wham reminds us what happened last Christmas. The corporatization of Christmas has sucked the spirit out of the holidays, and that goes double for its art. We have been getting Christmas specials warning us about how rampant consumerism and the corporate push to start the spending season sooner and sooner each year would kill the spirit. Since at least 1965 with A Charlie Brown Christmas, and again in 1974 with It's the Easter Beagle, Charlie Brown, we've had almost 60 years of warning, and the problem has only gotten worse. Because of that, those kinds of movies have been wearing on me too much to enjoy them anymore, and the other options all seem so hollow. Every year, there's some new Hallmark-esque Christmas movie like Hot Frosty or Dear Christmas that all seem the same on the surface. City girl reconnects with her roots and finds a hot, folksy man in her hometown. Or a hot snowman. These movies are as much a Christmas film as Die Hard or Iron Man 3. They're Christmassy because they take place around the holiday, not because they engage with it. And all this is so disappointing to me because I remember watching ABC's 25 Days Till Christmas or going through the cabinet of DVDs and VHSs when I was really young. I used to celebrate with an entire month of movies and specials, but the excitement from those days has completely dried up. Well, all except for one drop. There is one movie I still get excited to watch every year, even after the 9 or so consecutive years I've been watching this movie. After nearly a dozen viewings, I am confident in saying that Tokyo Godfathers is the single best Christmas movie ever made, with the 1951 A Christmas Carol being the only contender for that top spot, in my opinion. The beautiful animation and incredibly human and down-to-earth character designs pulls you into Tokyo Godfather's story. The characters themselves are simultaneously bombastic, flawed, sympathetic, and realistic, which all comes together to tell a brilliantly written and funny story that gets better with each watch. It's also a story that deeply engages with the holiday and faith that it centers itself around. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Tokyo Godfathers is an anime directed by Satoshi Kon of Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, and Paprika fame, none of which I have seen. The film follows the trio of Gin, Hana, and Miyuki. The three of them live on the streets of Tokyo, surviving together as their own strange family. Hana, the zealous optimist, is the mother figure, a role she always wanted to fill but never could. Gin may not be the best father figure, but he keeps them cynically grounded versus Hana's frequent flights of fancy, and enjoyed his time as a father before losing everything. Miyuki is the jaded teenage runaway traumatized by her biological family, too afraid to go back to her old home. The three of them take care of each other in between their bickering, until one Christmas miracle disrupts their lives. While digging through the dump to find a lost gift Hana wanted to give to Miyuki, they found a baby in the trash instead. Hana believes this to be a blessing from God, finally being given the child she always prayed for, and wants to keep the baby. The other two know it's out of the question. They're homeless. As Gin puts it, they can barely take care of themselves. Hana relents, but remains adamant against the idea of bringing the kid to the police, and insists they find the parents themselves. The trio, with baby in tow, embark on a bizarre adventure navigating the underside of the city, sneaking through construction sites and alleyways just to get around. When caught in public, they get constant harassment about their stench and ragged attire, to the point that random people will pick fights with them. Along the way, we'll see the many ways someone can have everything taken from them. Some people bring ruin onto themselves and those around them. Others can escape the poverty they were born into just to be dragged back down by some horrible tragedy beyond their control. while some will be pushed away from the only home they knew. This movie goes to great lengths to remind us that we're all human, that we should all be treated better than we are, and to treat others the way we would want to be treated. The way the film drip feeds the characters past to us as they grow on their escapade through Tokyo is one of the ways the film gets better with every rewatch. For instance, Gin almost pulled the wool over my eyes in the first 5 minutes, when he lied about his backstory. When I rewatched the film for this video, I almost wrote a note about what he was saying, thinking, oh, I just forgot something, until I noticed a specific detail that I knew could not be true. I only caught it because I remembered his emotional climax. On the other hand, for scenes I did remember very well, like when an ambulance crashes into a convenience store, man do I look forward to that every time. The only other scene in any media I revel in as much as this ambulance crash would be the umbrella scene from Another, but I don't have time to gush over that right now. The movie's opening introduces who Hana and Gin are through their reactions to the nativity play. Hana is excited and bursting with joy watching the play while Gin is literally snoring through it. When he wakes up, he looks at the poster reading nativity play, sermon, dinner, showing that he's only there to get out of the cold and be fed. Which, fair enough. Not only does the opening scene characterize 2 of our 3 main characters before they ever speak a word, but it also frames the movie around the Christian faith, especially its morals. Through the little we see of the priest's sermon, the film lays the groundwork for the underlying theme of the movie as well as the Christian faith. The priest says that Jesus gave a place to belong for those who had none, meaning that God loves the poorest and the dregs of society, a core tenet of the faith which has been unfortunately swept aside and forgotten over the course of 2,000 years. Christian ideals are marked by their namesake. The entire purpose of the faith is to be Christ-like. The theological explanation for why God sent his son to earth as a person, which I'm most fond of, is that it was done to show us what the perfect human is. Jesus is still allowed to make mistakes, for to err is human. Like when he gets short with his mother before turning water into wine, or when he started flipping the tables of corrupt priests. But he also shows us the good we are capable of. We can be compassionate, we can share with our fellow man, and that we have both the capacities of forgiveness and redemption. There are a plethora of stories in the Christian tradition where people display these Christ-like qualities, like Olympias of the 4th century, who was born to great wealth and inherited it when her parents died at a young age. She gave away her wealth to the poor and built a monastery. Then there's Claire of Assisi, a medieval woman who ran away from her life of wealth, and, with help, would also establish a monastery for women who wanted to live a life of poverty to be closer to Christ. Or my favorite, the life of Melania the Younger, another woman born to vast wealth in the days of ancient Rome. She wanted to live an ascetic lifestyle and eventually convinced her husband to join her. In doing so, the 2 of them sold off such a vast amount of inherited land that it took years to sell all of it off. The 2 of them spent the rest of their lives wearing plain clothes, practicing celibacy, and most importantly, giving aid to the poor who needed it. And like the others, she also established monasteries to help the poor. I guess it was just the thing to do. These women recognize that hoarding vast wealth is a sin in God's eyes. For if you want to be perfect, you must sell your possessions and give to the poor. They realized that it was always the poorest that God loved the most, and that if they wanted God's love, they would need to unburden themselves of that greed and give aid to God's people the way Jesus would ensure that everyone was full and satisfied. These 3 women all voluntarily gave up their wealth to be more like Christ and get closer to God. In the earliest days of Christianity, the faithful were persecuted by the Romans, and their Savior had been slain on the cross. It was society's rejects, the persecuted, who made up the original Christians. Jesus had promised unto them an eternal paradise as reward for their perseverance, toiling, and hardship on earth. Cut to modern day, which makes it really weird that 99% of Christmas movies follow well-off, middle-class, or rich people. Like, where's my movie about a rich dude who shelters the city's orphans and gives away his fortune to offer them a better life? Oh my blue. The Batman is the good Christian movie. In A Christmas Carol, it makes sense why we're following a rich man. The entire point of the story is that our protagonist is a horrible person. He started as a lowly clerk who aspired to host mirthful parties but became a penny pincher who hardly paid for the coal to heat his furnace or to give his own clerk a single day off work a year. We see how his ill-gotten wealth and riches forged the chains that weigh down his soul, preventing him from reaching heaven. We are being shown the impossibility of a camel going through the eye of a needle. It takes 4 miracles, 4 spirits in a single night to inspire a man ruined by greed and wealth to rediscover his empathy for his fellow man. Only after 4 miracles could he finally begin to undo the damage he has done. That is how impossible it is for a rich man to be a good man. What makes Tokyo Godfathers such a joy to watch is the way it can engage with such a deep history and long tradition like the way A Christmas Carol can. That is to say, without needing to signal the connections to faith, with decorated trees or an eldritch saint sliding down chimneys to leave gifts for children. But instead by having our characters truly live it, as opposed to other films that show otherwise well-off people getting inconvenienced on their way to Christmas dinner. Tokyo Godfathers shows us people who are struggling to get by while they're guided by God's will. That isn't to say having a middle class or rich protagonist is necessarily a bad thing, it just isn't the most Christian thing for a Christmas film to do. Which is one of the things I enjoy so much about this movie. While the holiday factory pumps out content to overwhelm the masses every December, this gem feels like human art. But Tokyo Godfathers is also a movie which is perfectly enjoyable without the need to connect it back through millennia of history and tradition, and without my incessant need to beacon it as the golden idol to save us from the mediocrity and everlasting co-option and consumerism. This movie can move at a breakneck pace, as we follow our protagonist from a train to a cemetery to finding a man about to be crushed under his own car. On a first watch through, you will never know what to expect, but what you first see as randomness becomes intentional coincidences. Sometimes you'll get a payoff for a joke 15 minutes after the punchline and still keel over laughing. Hana, a non-passing trans woman, was hoping for a miracle like the Virgin Mary's, so she too could get pregnant and raise a child. She prays for this while on the soup line and asks the server for a little extra because she's eating for 2. We see by the server's expression that she's rather confused by this. 15 minutes later, after they've found the baby and started looking for her parents, we get a zoom-in shot to the same woman riding down an escalator as our protagonists are walking away, and she says, with shock, he was eating for 2. As a viewer, we think we're so far past the initial line in the soup kitchen, and then BAM! Seamlessly, we're thrown into the punchline we never saw coming. Throughout the movie, we get a sense that the people who worked on it loved what they were doing, that they wanted their passion to live on through this piece. Like the exaggerated expressions of Hana telling off Gin, her face is soft and colored by makeup at her rest. But when she's mad, it's defined by creases and harsh angles, and a giant screaming mouth missing 2 teeth. When she's happy, her long face can barely contain her wide grin. And when she's sad, the waterworks won't be able to hide that she's an ugly crier. The artist and director clearly had a vision with this movie's lighting. The color palette often feels muted and dreary, mirroring our protagonist's harsh living conditions. But the subtle light work to Kyoko, the baby central to the plot, makes it seem otherworldly, even holy. Every scene the baby is in, its skin is warmer and lighter than the world around it, to show us that it is a light in these people's lives. The artwork is just as exceptional as the writing and humor. And I just learned that the movie got a proper dub, and I need to find that so my eyes can focus on the animation instead of the subtitles. But this movie is a true gem that makes me long for a time when artists could focus on making their art, instead of our world where content needs to be constantly churned out to placate the masses and line the pockets of people who never laid a helpful hand on the project. Imagine with me a world where movies like Tokyo Godfathers are the norm, where directors and artists and writers can come together to share their dreams with the world, where oddities like this could become commonplace, instead of the cookie-cutter Hallmark and Lifetime rom-coms. To go beyond the limited scope of Christmas movies for a moment, Tokyo Godfathers allows us, the viewers, to laugh and cry and feel genuine emotions with our characters, instead of needing to undercut every sincere emotion on screen with a one-liner. The marvelization of cinema, the heavy hand of Hollywood executives, has stunted our shared dreams. What if our net isn't wide enough to catch everybody? What if we say something that only some people care about? What if the ticket buyer gets sad? They should laugh and sit there and buy more merch. Art is a means to profit, but good art is dangerous to the bottom line. Got a little distracted there. Let's move to stakes. A good movie always has stakes, or it's The Big Lebowski. Here, the life of a newborn baby hangs in the balance. But not just the life of one baby, the fate of 5 different families are all tied up in this mess. A number of different Christmas films will hinge on a woman getting a date by a deadline, or saving a building from foreclosure, or being at your sister's Christmas party as you hide your mouths behind mugs and talk about how Christmas trees became a thing. These are mundane, they're tried, and they have no stakes. Unlike those safe-washed movies, Tokyo Godfathers has stakes. The life of a newborn hangs in the balance, as well as the fate of 5 different families. This movie weaves a masterful tapestry tying together people of all walks of life. A man who ruined his life to gambling, a trans woman who lost her husband and was too ashamed to go back to her mother, and a runaway teen who rightfully stabbed her horrible cop father and who's been too afraid that she'd be arrested on sight to go back. Where else do you see a cast of characters like this? Like I said earlier, I've been watching this movie yearly for at least 9 years running, give or take a year or two. The first time I watched this, I missed a lot. I was younger then, and the movie was sub-only. I couldn't keep up with the subtitles, and I remember being just so tired that night. By the time the movie had ended, I couldn't have told you a thing I just saw. The next year I watched it again because I was already getting tired of the same rotation of Christmas movies every year. Miracle on 34th Street, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Jack Frost, The Santa Claus, A Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life. I could keep going, and I do like all those movies except one, but I was tired of them. The holiday season had been wearing me away for such a long time. I couldn't stand it anymore. But then I watched Tokyo Godfathers for the second time. It was the first bit of Christmas joy I had felt in a while, whereas these other movies I'd seen dozens of times passed me by like the highway at night, just a blur of lights. This second time around, I was like Geen after Miyuki barges into the tent screaming that the baby is missing. That is to say, very awake. While I've never been able to fully keep up with subtitles, this time I could follow along with the story, and using the little bits I remembered from the first time, I could piece it all together. I got to experience Geen's journey being a self-loathing geezer who eventually reconnected with his daughter. I got to see that they spent an entire night chasing after the wrong parents, only to find that the people in the photo weren't even married. That the woman had stolen a baby to replace her own stillborn. The dread she felt, losing her own child, and the continued emptiness even after the stolen baby was mistakenly returned to her. Now I saw the movie as a whole. The way its many odd puzzle pieces fell into place to illustrate the incomprehensible nature of God's plan. The unique passion this movie gifts to its audience is the love and care it uses to showcase the ideals of the faith. The way that a single selfless mission can raise up the community around them, instead of just rubber stamping mysterious ways over a miracle or tragedy. Most movies paint a coat of tinsel and hang some ornaments over their plot and call it a day, or invite the big red saint for another starring role so they can count it as Christmassy. Even when the film has a perfectly adequate plot, like Arthur Christmas, it's still just another film about how modern Christmas is being ruined by the industrialization of the season. I'm always harsher on Arthur Christmas than I should be. It's not a bad film, I'm just so tired of the message. Yes, the corporatization of Christmas is bad, and yes, it makes us miss the important things. That oh so important true meaning of Christmas. Heck, it even illustrates the point well with Arthur's brother over-focusing on efficiency. His brother is so focused on efficiency and getting a gift into a kid's hands
That he can't see that the reason you give a gift is to bring joy to a child. But this message falls flat when the fix is still to give something to a kid. Materialism is still the solution. But then we have Tokyo Godfathers. It's not concerned with the shortcomings of the modern holiday. It embodies Jesus' teachings of compassion and goodwill to all men. But it does so in a way I don't feel any other Christmas movie does. Even with this year's rewatch, it ignited some feeling in me. It felt great watching the movie again. There are always details I forget over the course of a year. Like, I forgot that Gin makes up a fake backstory at the start, or how awful Miyuki's dad is. There is no greater sin than being awful to a cat. Man deserved a second stabbing. But the scenes I did remember are always just as great to revisit. Like, of course, the ambulance crashing into the convenience store lives rent-free in my mind.
I don't want to say that every movie needs to be some masterpiece. We wouldn't get Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, or Jack Frost. No, not the one I mentioned before. Probably not the one you're thinking either. The one with the killer snowman? Yeah, awful movie. Solid 8 out of 10. But I do wish we could just have some better quality movies. The movie industry is so obscenely large, and we get dozens of Christmas movies each year. It shouldn't be that much to ask for some good ones that can also engage with the faith that they are supposedly centering themselves around. Tokyo Godfathers should not be an outlier, but we should also be able to see more movies capable of engaging with the holiday, that true meaning of Christmas on a deeper level. I mean, there are dozens of Christmas movies aimed at little kids designed to teach them just that. But a Charlie Brown Christmas is the only one that goes that extra mile while still being watchable. Every other movie gives the stock moral that giving someone a gift is the greatest joy. And yes, that's a good moral, but it also secularizes the holiday. They need to safe wash it. They need to make it look Christian enough that people can cosplay the faith and leave their introspection at the door. Why question the things you're taught or think deeper about the faith you proudly boast when you can watch the funny movie about people doing good without doing any yourself? Why have a Christmas movie when a winter movie is just as good? Another December classic. Am I asking for more Christian movies? Oh, that's weird. I just want more movies with real substance. Something they want to say. I can turn off my brain and watch slop whenever I want, while also playing Pokemon. But when I feel like watching something, I want substance. I want something made with heart and passion, like Tokyo Godfathers.